My guest just finished putting together and compiling this book about television in this town and in this state. John Kraft, professor at Arizona State University, has put together an amazing thing with the help of
Lisa Honebeck.
Yes, who was with Channel 5 for a long, long time. But this is not about the book. We'll have you back sometime when you're doing a book signing.
Okay.
It was just, this is an amazing compilation and gathering of the history of Phoenix television. But television in general across the United States has changed dramatically. From the time you began teaching, and now with the Cronkite School, but wherever it is that that first classroom was, tell us where people went for news in those days.
Well, primarily the newspaper, and then radio, and then television, and now, who knows?
But if you were ever going to be well-informed, you would start with the morning paper, because everybody got one.
Definitely.
What about now?
Well, now, first of all, the generation now is not paying that much attention to the news.
I want to know what happens to newspapers, though, these days when major cities are actually finding that their newspapers, after 100, 150 years, are just disappearing.
Yes. They're getting smaller and smaller and smaller and going out of business in many cases. And part of the problem is maybe that they expected too much in return, too much profit, and consequently are trying to save that profit at the expense of cutting reporters, cutting the size of the paper. But the newspaper didn't really have a very good economic model in recent years. Newsprint cost a lot of money. People to put the newspaper on your doorstep every morning cost a lot of money. There are less expensive ways of delivering information.
What about radio, though? Radio had an advantage over newspapers and television because it was instant coverage of anything that was going on. You didn't need a camera there. All you needed was somebody on a telephone.
Yes. That became a good source of information, a quick source of information, primarily during World War II and then up into the 50s.
That's changing?
Television came about in the 50s. And then television became our major source of information. And for a certain generation still is. Now with the internet, though, you can get it on your phone anytime, any place. The problem is that you're getting headlines. We're not really spending enough time looking at the detail in the information.
What about social media in general? Because it used to be that you actually had to be hired to be a reporter. And now everybody that has a phone or a computer is a reporter.
Everybody can be a reporter. The problem is not everybody has an agenda that really is useful to the greater society.
How long have you been studying and teaching communications?
More than 50 years.
How do we get the truth then now in 2019?
Well, what is the truth? The truth is elusive in many cases because of selective perception. In other words, what I see may be a little bit different from what you see. So a reporter is more or less trained to sort through all of that and come up with probably a better description of what actually happened.
But not necessarily the guy in his parents' basement.
Not necessarily the guy in his parents' basement.
John Kraft from ASU's Cronkite School.